A couple's happy married life almost went on the rocks because of the presence in the household of old Aunt Emma. For 17 long years, she lived with them, always crotchety, always demanding. Eventually, the old girl passed away. On the way back from the cemetery, the husband confessed to his wife, "Darling, if I didn't love you so much, I don't think I could have put up with having your Aunt Emma in the house all those years." His wife looked at him aghast. "My Aunt Emma!" she cried. "I thought she was your Aunt Emma." A blonde walks into a bank in New York City and asks for the loan officer. She says she's going to Europe on business for 2 weeks and needs to borrow $5,000. The bank officer says the bank will need some kind of security for the loan. So the blonde hands over the keys to a new Mercedes Benz. The car is parked on the street in front of the bank. She has the title and everything checks out. The bank agrees to accept the car as collateral for the loan. The bank's president and its officers all enjoy a good laugh at the blonde for using a $110,000 Benz as collateral against a $5,000 loan. An employee of the bank then proceeds to drive the Benz into the bank's underground garage and parks it there. 2 weeks later, the blonde returns and repays the $5,000 in the interest, which comes to $15.41. The loan officer says, "Miss, we are very happy to have had your business. And this transaction has worked out very nicely, but we are a little puzzled. While you were away, we checked you out and found that you are a multimillionaire. What puzzles us is, why would you bother to borrow $5,000? The blonde replies, "Where else in New York City can I park my car for 2 weeks for only $15.41 and expect it to be there when I return?" When a woman wants to teach you a lesson, even Satan sits down to take notes. My neighbor was a big drunk. His wife used to pick him up in bars and trenches. Her family and friends advised her to leave him, but she was hopeful that she'll find a solution. One Saturday, she went to pick him up again. He was completely drunk. Instead of taking him home, she headed straight to the mortuary. She negotiated with the mortuary attendants to make him lie with the corpses, and when he wakes up, help me to teach him a lesson. She then went back home. Fear women. When he woke up, he started screaming when he found himself sleeping in the middle of dead bodies. He started screaming and calling for help, pleading that he's not dead. The mortuary attendants came laughing and told him that they are used to corpses being brought to the morgue and start practicing witchcraft. They told him to lie down and that he was dead, and whatever he was seeing was not in real life, but in the other end of living dead. He continued screaming, and the morgue attendants came with an axe and hammer and told him that stubborn corpses are beaten and hacked until they become cooperative. He was told to lie and wait for his postmortem later that day since his cause of death hadn't been established. He stayed there, frightened in the middle of corpses the whole of that day and Sunday night. On Monday morning, they released him and told him to go home, say bye-bye to his family, and come back to the morgue for preservation since he was now a mere spirit. He ran home on foot, straight to the mirror, to check if he was seeing himself. His wife pretended not to see him, which made him even more worried. He went to the bathroom, took a shower, dressed up, and carried a Bible. That's when his wife told him that it was a Monday morning and not Sunday. Several months later, he's yet to reveal what happened to him and where he was the 2 nights he wasn't at home. He stopped taking alcohol completely, not even soda, just milk and water. He goes to church religiously, the power of a woman. An 84-year-old man is having a drink in Harpoon Harry's. Suddenly, a gorgeous girl enters and sits down a few seats away. The girl is so attractive that he just can't take his eyes off her. After a short while, the girl notices him staring and approaches him. Before the man has time to apologize, the girl looks him deep in the eyes and says to him in a sultry tone, "I'll do anything you'd like, anything you can imagine in your wildest dreams. It doesn't matter how extreme or unusual it is, I'm game. I want $100, and there's another condition." Completely stunned by the sudden turn of events, the man asks her what her condition is. "You have to tell me what you want me to do in just 3 words. The man takes a moment to consider the offer from the beautiful woman. He whips out his wallet and puts $100 into her hand. He then looks her square in the eyes and says slowly and clearly, "Paint my house. Our needs change as we get older, and we tend to look for bargains." handsome man in a suit approached a young lady at a bar and politely asked if he could buy her a drink. "Don't you have a girlfriend?" she inquired skeptically. "Guys like you always have girlfriends." Looking somewhat forlorn, he replied, "No, sadly we broke up just over a month ago." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," she responded sympathetically. "Okay then, I'll have a white wine, please." One glass of wine led to another. After a few more drinks, they shared a kiss and cuddle, eventually deciding to head back to her place where they made passionate love. As he dressed afterward, she couldn't help but ask, "So you're good looking, a nice guy, and amazing in bed. Can I ask why on earth you split with your girlfriend?" He sighed. "The wife found out." An elderly farmer went into town to catch a movie. At the ticket booth, the attendant noticed something on his shoulder and asked, "Sir, what's that on your shoulder?" The farmer replied proudly, "That's my pet rooster, Chucky. He goes everywhere with me." "I'm sorry, sir," said the attendant. "We can't allow animals in the theater, not even a pet chicken." Undeterred, the farmer walked around the corner, discreetly tucked Chucky into his pants, and returned to buy his ticket. He found a seat between two elderly ladies named Mildred and Marge. As the movie started, Chucky began to stir. The farmer unzipped his pants so the rooster could peek out and enjoy the film. "Marge," whispered Mildred. "What is it?" asked Marge. "I think the man next to me is behaving strangely." Mildred whispered back. "Why do you say that?" Marge inquired. "He unzipped his pants," Mildred replied, "and he seems to have something out." Marge chuckled softly. "Oh, at our age, we've seen it all." "Yes," Mildred sighed, "but this one is eating my popcorn." One Sunday morning, the pastor noticed little Alex standing in the foyer of the church staring up at a large plaque. It was covered with names and small American flags mounted on either side of it. The 6-year-old had been staring at the plaque for some time. So the pastor walked up, stood beside the little boy, and said quietly, "Good morning, Alex." "Good morning, Pastor," he replied, still focused on the plaque. "Pastor, what is this?" The pastor replied, "Well, son, it's a memorial to all the young men and women who died in the service." Soberly, they just stood together, staring at the large plaque. Finally, little Alex's voice, barely audible and trembling with fear, asked, "Which service, the 8 o'clock or the 9:30? Two old men are sitting in a bar. One of them looks at the other and says, "You look familiar. Where are you from?" The second old man replies, "Ireland." The first old man looks astonished and says, "No way, I'm from Ireland myself. What a small world." The second old man then looks at the first, "What city?" The first old man says, "Dublin." The second old man looks astonished. "No way, I'm from Dublin myself. What a small world." The first man looks at the second old man. "What school you go to?" The second old man replies, "St. Mary's class of '89. The first old man is absolutely baffled. "No way, St. Mary's class of '89 myself." What a small world. At this point, another man comes into the bar and says to the bartender, "Hey, Joe, anything interesting going on?" The bartender says, "Not really, but the Murphy twins are drunk again." An old hillbilly farmer had a wife who nagged him unmercifully. From morning till night, and sometimes later, she was always complaining about something. The only time he got any relief was when he was out plowing with his old mule. He tried to plow a lot. One day, when he was out plowing, his wife brought him lunch in the field. He drove the old mule into the shade, sat down on a stump, and began to eat his lunch. Immediately, his wife began haranguing him again. Complain, nag, nag. It just went on and on. All of a sudden, the old mule lashed out with both hind feet, caught her smack in the back of the head, killed her dead on the spot. At the funeral, several days later, the minister noticed something rather odd. When a woman mourner would approach the old farmer, he would listen for a minute, then nod his head in agreement. But when a man mourner approached him, he would listen for a minute, then shake his head in disagreement. This was so consistent, the minister decided to ask the old farmer about it. Following the funeral, the clergyman approached the elderly farmer and inquired why he nodded in accord with the women, but consistently shook his head in disagreement with the men. The old farmer said, "Well, the women would come up and say something about how nice my wife looked or how pretty her dress was, so I'd nod my head in agreement." "And what about the men?" the minister asked. "They wanted to know if the mule was for sale." My boyfriend is the best, y'all. He was so happy I remained mostly faithful to him while he was away in prison for 18 months. So happy, in fact, that he is slow cooking dinner for us tonight. I tell him, baby, I do have a stove, You don't have to cook on my iron. But he has these particular ways about doing things LOL. Anyways, he won't tell me exactly what it is he's making, only that it contains 9 packages of chicken-flavored top ramen and half a pack of bologna. It takes 14 hours to cook. So we're gonna go on a ride to visit a friend of his and drop off a package. I tell you what, y'all, never give up on a good man. Last week, we took some friends out to a new restaurant and noticed that that the waiter who took our order carried a spoon in his shirt pocket. It seemed a little strange. When the waiter brought our water and cutlery, I noticed he also had a spoon in his shirt pocket. Then I looked around and saw that all the staff had spoons in their pockets. When the waiter came back to serve our soup, I asked, "Why the spoon?" "Well," he explained, "the restaurant's owners hired Anderson Consulting to revamp all our processes. After several months of analysis, they concluded that the spoon was the most frequently dropped piece of cutlery. It represents a drop frequency of approximately 3 spoons per table per hour. If our staff are better prepared, we can reduce the number of trips back to the kitchen and save 15 man-hours per shift." As luck would have it, I dropped my spoon, and he was able to replace it with his spare. I'll get another spoon next time I go to the kitchen, instead of making an extra trip to get it right now. I was impressed. I also noticed that there was a string hanging out of the waiter's zip on his trousers. Looking around, I noticed that all the waiters had the same string hanging from their flies. So before he walked off, I asked the waiter, "Excuse me, but can you tell me why you have that string right there?" "Oh, certainly." Then he lowered his voice. "Not everyone is so observant. That consulting firm I mentioned also found out that we can save time in the restroom. By tying this string to the tip of, you know what? We can pull it out without touching it and eliminate the need to wash our hands, shortening the time spent in the restroom by 76.39%. I asked, "After you get it out, how do you put it back?" "Well," he whispered, "I don't know about the others, but I use the spoon." An airplane cleaner was cleaning the pilot's cockpit when he saw a book titled How to Fly an Aeroplane for Beginners, Volume 1. He opened the first page, which said, "To start the engine, press the red button." He did so, and the airplane engine started. He was happy and opened the next page. "To get the airplane moving, press the blue button." He did so, and the plane started moving at an amazing speed. He wanted to fly, so he opened the third page, which said, "To let the airplane fly, please press the green button." He did so, and the plane started to fly. He was excited. After 20 minutes of flying, he was satisfied and wanted to land. So he decided to go to the fourth page. And page 4 says, "To know how to land an airplane, please purchase Volume 2 at the nearest bookshop." Moral of the story 1. Never attempt anything without complete information. 2. Half an education is not only dangerous, but destructive. 3. Stay in your lane. Stick to what you know and you are good at. The only cow in a small town in Texas stopped giving milk. The people did some research and found they could buy a super milk cow up in Antigua, Wisconsin for $2,000. They bought the cow from Wisconsin, and the cow was wonderful. It produced lots of milk all of the time, and the people were pleased and very happy. They decided to acquire a bull to mate with the cow and produce more cows like it. They would never have to worry about their milk supply again. They bought a bull and put it in the pasture with their beloved cow. However, whenever the bull came close to the cow would move away. No matter what approach the bull tried, the cow would move away from the bull, and he could not succeed in his quest. The people were very upset and decided to ask the vet, who was very wise, what to do. They told the vet what was happening. Whenever the bull approaches our cow, she moves away. If he approaches from the back, she moves forward. When he approaches her from the front, she backs off. She approaches from the side, and she walks away to the other side. The vet thinks about this for a minute and asks, "Did you buy this cow in Wisconsin?" The people were dumbfounded, since they had never mentioned where they bought the cow. "You are truly a wise vet," they said. How did you know we got the cow in Wisconsin? The vet replied with a distant look in his eye. My wife is from Wisconsin. A week after John bought a bull, he complained to his friend, all that bull does is eat grass, won't even look at a cow. Take him to the vet, his friend suggested. The next week, John is much happier. The vet gave him some pills, and the bull serviced all of my cows, he told his pal. Then he broke through the fence and bred with all my neighbors' cows. He's like a machine. What kind of pills were they? Asked the friend. I don't know, but they've got a peppermint taste. A lawyer sold his well to an old man. 2 days later, the lawyer came to the old man and said, Sir, I sold you the well, but it's not with the water inside. If you want to use the water, you will have to pay extra. The old man smiled and replied, Yes, I was about to come to you. I was going to say that you should take your water from my well, or else you will have to start paying rent from tomorrow. A balding, white-haired man from Sherman Oaks in California walked into a jewelry store in a local mall this past Friday evening with a beautiful, much younger gal at his side. He told the jeweler he was looking for a special ring for his girlfriend. The jeweler looked through his stock and brought out a $5,000 ring. The man said, No, I'd like to see something more special. At that statement, the jeweler went to his special stock and brought another ring over. Here's a stunning ring at only $40,000, the jeweler said. The lady's eyes sparkled and her whole body trembled with excitement. The old man, seeing this, said, We'll take it. The jeweler asked how payment would be made, and the man stated, By check. I know you need to make sure my check is good, so I'll write it now and you can call the bank Monday to verify the funds, and I'll pick up the ring Monday afternoon. On Monday morning, the jeweler angrily phoned the old man and said, There was only $25 in your account. I know, said the old man, but let me tell you about my great weekend. We have the standard 6 feet. Fence in the backyard, and a few months ago, I heard about burglaries increasing dramatically in the entire city. To make sure this never happened to me, I got an electric fence and ran a single wire along the top of the fence. Actually, I got the biggest cattle charger Tractor Supply had, made for 26 miles of fence. I then used an 8 feet long ground rod and drove it 7.5 feet into the ground. The ground rod is the key. With the more you have in the ground, the better the fence works. One day I'm mowing the backyard with my cheap Walmart 6GP big wheel push mower. The hot wire is broken and lying out in the yard. I knew for a fact that I unplugged the charger. I pushed the mower around the wire and reached down to grab it to throw it out of the way. It seems as though I hadn't remembered to unplug it after all. Now I'm standing there. I've got the running lawnmower in my right hand and the 1.7 gigavolt fence wire in the other hand. Keep in mind the charger is about the size of a marine battery and has a picture of an upside-down cow on fire on the cover. Time stood still. The first thing I notice is my pecker trying to climb up the front side of my body. My ears curled downwards, and I could feel the lawnmower ignition firing in the backside of my brain. Every time that Briggs and Stratton rolled over, I could feel the spark in my head. I was literally one with the engine. It seems as though the fence charger and the piece of shit lawnmower were fighting over who would control my electrical impulses. Science says you cannot crap, pee, and vomit at the same time. I beg to differ. Not only did I do all 3 at once, but my bowels emptied 3 different times in less than half of a second. It was a matrix kind of bowel movement, where time is creeping along and you're all leaned back and bam, 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 you just crap your pants 3 times. It seemed like there were minutes in between, but in reality, it was so close together it was like exhaust pulses. From a big block Chevy turning $8,000. At this point, I'm about 30 minutes, maybe 2 seconds, into holding onto the fence wire. My hand is wrapped around the wire, palm down so I can't let go. I grew up on a farm, so I know all about electric fences. But Dad always had those pieces of shit chargers made by International or whoever that were like 9 volts and just kind of tickled. This one I could not let go of. The 8-foot-long ground rod is now accepting signals from me through the Permadump Arc Latex river bottom soil. At this point, I'm thinking I'm going to have to just man up and take until the lawnmower runs out of gas. Damn, I think, as I remember, I just filled the tank. Now the lawnmower is starting to run rough. It has settled into a loping run pattern, as if it had some kind of big lawnmower race cam in it. covered in poop, pee, and with my vomit on my chest. I think, oh God, please die. Please die. But no! It settles into the rough, lumpy cam, idles nicely and remains there, like a big bore roller cam EFI motor, waiting for the go command from its owner's right foot. So here I am in the middle of July, 104 degrees, 80% humidity, standing in my own backyard begging God to kill me. God did not take me that day. He left me there covered in my own fluids to writhe in the misery my own stupidity had created. I honestly don't know how I got loose from the wire. I woke up lying on the ground hours later, and the lawnmower was beside me, out of gas. It was later on in the day, and I was sunburned. There were 2 large dead grass spots where I had been standing, and then another long, skinny dead spot where the wire had lain, while I was on the ground still holding on to it. I assume I finally had a seizure, and in the resulting thrashing had somehow let go of the wires. Upon waking from my electrically induced sleep, I realized a few things. 1. 3 of my teeth seem to have melted. 2. I now have cramps in the bottoms of my feet and my right butt cheek. Not the left, just the right. 3. Poop, pee, and vomit, when all mixed together, do not smell as bad as you might think. 4. My left eye will not open. 5. My right eye will not close. 6. The lawnmower runs like a bitch now. Seriously? I think our little session cleared out some carbon fouling or something, because it was better than new after that. 7. My nuts are still smaller than average, yet they are almost a foot long. 8. Scene. I can turn on the TV in the game room by farting while thinking of the number 4. Still don't understand this. That day changed my life. I now have a newfound respect for things. I don't care what type of humor you like. This is funny. I appreciate the little things more, and now I always triple check to make sure the fence is unplugged before I mow. The good is that if a burglar does try to come over the fence, I can clearly visualize what my security system will do to him. And that gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling all over, which also reminds me to triple check before I mow. So I'm at Walmart scanning and bagging my almost $300 worth of groceries, while the employee that wants $15 an hour monitors. And then this happened. Her, why are you double bagging all of your groceries? Me, excuse me. Her, you are wasting our bags. Me, if you don't like the way I'm bagging the groceries, feel free to come on over here and bag them yourself. Her, that's not my job. Me, okay, then I will bag my groceries how I please, if that's all right with you. Her, why are you using 2 bags? Me, because the bags are weak, and I don't want the handles to break or the bottoms to rip out. Her, well, that's because you are putting too much stuff in the bag. If you took half of that stuff out and put it in a different bag, then you wouldn't need to double bag. Asterisk 10 seconds of me just staring at her. Me. So you want me to split these items in half and put half of them in a different bag so that I don't have to double bag? Her. Exactly. Me. So I would still be using 2 bags to hold the same number of items. Her. No, because you wouldn't be double bagging. Asterisk me pressing 2 fingers to my left eye in an attempt to make it stop twitching. Me. Okay, so here? I have a jug of milk and a bottle of juice double bagged. If I take the milk out and remove the double bagging and just put the milk in the single bag and the juice in that single bag, I'm still using 2 bags for these 2 items. Her, no, because you are not double bagging them, so it's not the same number of bags. Asterisk me looking around at about 10 other customers, who at this point are enjoying the show. Me, is this like that Common Core math stuff I keep hearing about? Her, never mind, you just don't get it. And with that, she went back to her little podium so she could continue texting or playing games on her phone or whatever it was she was doing before she decided to come over and critique my bagging skills. An old, tired-looking dog wanders into a guy's yard. He examines the dog's collar and feels his well-fed belly and knows the dog has a home. The dog follows him into the house, goes down the hall, jumps on the couch, gets comfortable, and falls asleep. The man thinks it's rather odd, but lets him sleep. After about an hour, the dog wakes up, walks to the door, and the guy lets him out. The dog wags his tail and leaves. The next day, the dog comes back and scratches at the door. The guy opens the door, the dog comes in, goes down the hall, jumps on the couch, gets comfortable, and falls asleep again. The man lets him sleep. After about an hour, the dog wakes up and walks to the door, and the guy lets him out. The dog wags his tail and leaves. This goes on for days. The guy grows really curious, so he pins a note on the dog's collar. Your dog has been taking a nap at my house every day. The next day, the dog arrives with another note pinned to his collar. He lives in a home with 4 children. He's trying to catch up on his sleep. Can I come with him tomorrow? 2 little old ladies, Neve and Tara, were sitting on a park bench outside the local town hall in Limerick, where a flower show was in progress. The short one, Neve, leaned over and said, "Life is so boring. We never have any fun anymore. For €10, I'd take my clothes off and streak through that stupid, boring flower show." "You're on," said Tara, holding up a €10 bill. So, Neve slowly fumbled her way out of her clothes. She grabbed a dried flower from a nearby display and held it between her teeth. Then, completely naked, she streaked as fast as an old lady can through the front door of the flower show. Waiting outside, her friend soon heard a huge commotion inside the hall, followed by loud applause and shrill whistling. Finally, the smiling Neve came through the exit door, surrounded by a cheering, clapping crowd. "What happened?" asked Tara. "I won €100 as first prize for Best Dried Arrangement. Warning for all males from me when buying a security device for a loved one. Last weekend I saw something at the gun show that sparked my interest. I was looking for a little something different for my wife, Dana. What I came across was a 100,000-volt pocket/purse-sized taser. The effects of the taser were supposed to be short-lived, with no long-term adverse effect on your assailant, allowing her adequate time to retreat to safety. Way too cool. Long story short, I bought the device and brought it home. I loaded 2 AAA batteries in the darn thing and pushed the button. Nothing. I was disappointed to learn, however, that if I pushed the button and pressed it against a metal surface at the same time, I'd get the blue arc of electricity darting back and forth between the prongs. Awesome. Unfortunately, I have yet to explain to Dana what that burn spot is on the face of her microwave. Okay, so I was home alone with this new toy, thinking to myself that it couldn't be all that bad with only 2 AAA batteries, right? There I sat in my recliner, my cat Leo looking on intently, trusting little soul, while I was reading the directions and thinking that I really needed to try this thing out on a flesh and blood moving target. I must admit I thought about zapping Leo for a fraction of a second, and then thought better of it. He is such a sweet cat. But if I was going to give this thing to my wife to protect herself against a mugger, I did want some assurance that it would work as advertised. Am I wrong? So, there I sat in a pair of shorts and a singlet with my reading glasses perched delicately on the bridge of my nose, directions in one hand, and a taser in another. The directions said that a 1-second burst would shock and disorient your assailant. A 2-second burst was supposed to cause muscle spasms and a major loss of bodily control. And a 3-second burst would purportedly make your assailant flop on the ground like a fish out of water. Any burst longer than 3 seconds would be wasting the batteries. All the while, I'm looking at this little device measuring about 5 inches long and less than 3/4 inch in circumference, loaded with 2 itsy-bitsy AAA batteries. Pretty cute, really, and thinking to myself, no possible way. What happened next is almost beyond description, but I'll do my best. I'm sitting there alone, the cat looking on with his head cocked to one side so as to say, "Don't do it, stupid," reasoning that a 1-second burst from such a tiny little thing couldn't hurt all that badly. I decided to give myself a 1-second burst just for the heck of it. I touched the prongs to my naked thigh, pushed the button, and... Holy Mother of God, weapons of mass destruction. What the... I am certain I just met Jesus. I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan ran in through the side door, picked me up in the recliner, then body slammed us both on the carpet over and over and over again. I vaguely recall waking up on my side in the fetal position, with tears in my eyes, body soaking wet, both nipples on fire, testicles nowhere to be found, with my left arm tucked under my body in the oddest position and tingling in my legs. The cat was making meowing sounds I had never heard before, clinging to a picture frame hanging above the fireplace, obviously in an attempt to avoid getting slammed by my body flopping all over the living room. Note: If you ever feel compelled to mug yourself with a taser, one note of caution. There is no such thing as a 1 second burst when you zap yourself. You will not let go of that thing until it is dislodged from your hand by a violent thrashing about on the floor. A 3 second burst would be considered conservative. A minute or so later, I can't be sure, as time was a relative thing at that point, I collected my wits, and what little I had left, sat up and surveyed the landscape. My bent reading glasses were on the top of the TV. The recliner was upside down and about 8 feet or so from where it originally was. My triceps, right thigh, and both nipples were still twitching. My face felt like it had been shot up with Novocaine, and my bottom lip weighed 88 pounds. I had no control over the drooling. Apparently, I had crapped in my shorts, but was too numb to know for sure, and my sense of smell was gone. I saw a faint smoke cloud above my head, which I believe came from my hair. I'm still looking for my testicles, and I'm offering a significant reward for their safe return. P.S. My wife can't stop laughing about my experience, loved the gift, and now regularly threatens me with it.